The South China Sea, a stretch of ocean covering over 1 million square miles, rich in resources, crisscrossed by shipping routes and shadowed by military patrols. It is here that the fate of nations collides, where rival powers test each other's resolve. On one seemingly routine mission, a U.S. Navy A-18 Super Hornet found itself dangerously intercepted by Chinese fighter jets. What began as standard reconnaissance quickly spiraled into a standoff that nearly triggered a diplomatic disaster. This is the untold story of what happened in the skies, and why the world still feels its tremors today. The importance of the South China Sea cannot be overstated. Every year, an estimated $5 trillion worth of trade passes through these waters. From oil tankers to container ships, this sea is the economic lifeline of Asia, and by extension, the world. Beneath the surface lie vast oil and gas reserves, estimated at billions of barrels, as well as some of the richest fishing grounds on Earth. But it is not just economics, it is sovereignty. China claims almost the entire sea under its so-called nine-dash line, a boundary rejected by international courts and challenged by other nations including the Philippines, Vietnam, and Malaysia. For Beijing, controlling the sea is about national pride and regional dominance. For Washington, it's about preventing any single power from locking down international waters. This backdrop of conflicting visions makes every military flight in the region a flashpoint. The F-18 Super Hornet represents more than just an aircraft. It represents America's forward presence. Built to be fast, durable, and adaptable, the jet can dominate air-to-air battles and strike ground targets with equal precision. Capable of reaching nearly twice the speed of sound and armed with advanced radar-guided missiles, the Super Hornet embodies both deterrence and combat readiness. Its ability to take off from carriers like the USS Ronald Reagan or USS Nimitz means the U.S. Navy can project force anywhere in the world. In the South China Sea, it is both sword and shield, protecting American interests and challenging Chinese expansion. The day began like many others. A pair of Super Hornets launched from a U.S. carrier strike group stationed east of the Spratly Islands. Their orders were simple: conduct reconnaissance, collect intelligence on Chinese naval activity, and maintain the principle of freedom of navigation. But as soon as they approached the contested area, the Chinese military took notice. Within minutes, radar operators tracked the American jets, and two J-11 fighters scrambled to intercept. The J-11, a variant of the Russian Su-27, is fast, heavily armed, and designed for exactly these kinds of encounters. As they closed the distance, the mission shifted from routine patrol to dangerous standoff. What happened next pushed the limits of aerial brinkmanship. The Chinese fighters approached within 20 feet of the American jets, an incredibly reckless maneuver at high altitude and supersonic speed. The turbulence from their wings buffeted the U.S. planes, forcing quick corrections to avoid collision. Radio transmissions crackled through the headsets. "You are entering Chinese airspace. Leave immediately." The American pilots responded with calm authority. "This is international airspace. We will continue our mission." The standoff dragged on, the two sides flying wingtip to wingtip in a silent contest of willpower. One wrong move, a collision, a misinterpreted maneuver, could have unleashed chaos. This was not the first time such an encounter had pushed U.S.-China relations to the brink. In April 2001, a U.S. EP-3 reconnaissance plane collided with a Chinese fighter over Hainan Island. The Chinese pilot was killed, the American crew was forced to make an emergency landing, and an international incident erupted. That event still haunts both militaries. The Super Hornet pilots knew the danger. They understood that history could repeat itself in an instant. And this time, with tensions already heightened by territorial disputes, the consequences could have been even more explosive. China's aggressive intercept was not an accident. It was part of a broader strategy to push back against U.S. patrols and normalize its own dominance. By shadowing, intimidating, and forcing close encounters, Beijing seeks to discourage American missions and establish de facto control. This is not just about planes in the sky, it is about setting rules. If China can intimidate the U.S. into retreating, then other regional nations will think twice before resisting Beijing's claims. Every interception becomes both a tactical maneuver and a strategic signal. Despite the danger, the American pilots held steady. They neither retreated nor escalated. Instead, they followed their mission parameters, flying with discipline and restraint. This response was deliberate. The U.S. Navy understands that strength is not always shown by firing weapons, but by refusing to be coerced. By completing their patrol, the Super Hornets demonstrated that international airspace cannot be claimed through intimidation. It was a powerful message, not just to China, but to every nation watching the unfolding drama. The skies above the South China Sea are only one front in a much larger contest. China continues to fortify artificial islands with airstrips, missile systems, and naval facilities, turning reefs into military bases. The U.S. responds with freedom of navigation operations, sending ships and aircraft to challenge those claims. Meanwhile, regional allies like the Philippines, Vietnam, and Japan find themselves caught in the middle. For them, the outcome of this rivalry determines whether their seas remain free or fall under Chinese dominance. This is not merely a regional struggle. It is about the balance of power in the entire Indo-Pacific. The danger of incidents like this cannot be underestimated. A mid-air collision or a single miscalculation could spiral into conflict. Once shots are fired, both sides would be under pressure to respond, dragging their allies into a confrontation with global consequences. Analysts warn that while neither the U.S. nor China desires war, the risk of accidental escalation is rising. The South China Sea is crowded, contested, and full of opportunities for disaster. Eventually, the Chinese fighters broke off their pursuit. The Super Hornets completed their patrol and returned to their carrier. On the surface, it appeared as though nothing had happened, but in reality, everything had changed. The encounter became yet another data point in a dangerous pattern of escalation. Each incident raises the stakes, increases the mistrust, and narrows the space for diplomacy. The skies may have grown quiet, but the political storm beneath them only intensified. The standoff between the Super Hornet and the J-11s serves as a stark reminder. The South China Sea is not just a sea. It is a stage where the future of global power is rehearsed daily. Every patrol, every interception, every tense moment in the skies reflects the broader struggle between America's commitment to free navigation and China's pursuit of dominance. The world can only hope that cooler heads prevail, because the cost of failure would not just be borne by pilots in the sky, it would be borne by every nation that depends on these waters for trade, energy, and peace. If you found this detailed look at the South China Sea confrontation insightful, don't forget to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel. Global military rivalries are shaping the 21st century, and staying informed helps us all understand the fragile balance of peace and power. Hit the bell icon so you never miss the next in-depth documentary on military technology, history, and geopolitics.